Hello and welcome back to 100% Real with Ruby. Today I have on Shane Walsh, and his podcast has been blowing up lately, and it's brought up quite a few topics which I know that many other females out there will probably think that we are speaking directly at you and to you, and that's because we are, because the stories we tell ourselves, the things that hold us back, it's just ridiculous. And something that Shane Walsh does really well is he educates and gets his ladies to move away from these stupid fads, the 1,200 calorie diets, and it's kind of difficult when we get these bottlenecks that aren't really physical bottlenecks, they're mental ones. So what is it that you find to be the biggest struggle, and what do you find to be the main thing that you work with your female clients? And in that, you'll be introducing pretty much the core of what you do.
I appreciate you having me on, first of all, Ruby. So thank you so much for that and the amazing introduction. So I think one of the biggest things that from coaching like over 1,000 women at this stage is the education towards how they work on their cycles. Number one, the education in the school system in Ireland hasn't been amazing in relation to, like, we were like, if you look back 20 years ago, the Catholic Church was probably running the state. Like, it wasn't, and that's changed an awful lot because of things that have come out, and some people believe, some people don't believe, and that's up to them. But the big things that are kind of coming out are that the education system for the cycle and stuff isn't there. I don't think every girl realizes that every single one of you is unique in how you operate. There's more research being done on PCOS, endometriosis. Like, I even saw something, what stupid things clients or coaches say to their clients, and one of the things was PCOS is a state of mind. So the education, I was just like, you're a fucking idiot. The education system for coaches has to improve as well, which doesn't help. But one of the things that really kind of has hit home, I think, in particular for me as a coach over the last kind of 18 months of kind of lockdown, really is the stories that we do tell ourselves. Like, we all have these stories that are like self-serving, and that we end up believing them. And they're the bits that direct us in a direction that we may not necessarily want to go, but we latch onto it like it's true. We latch onto it like it's our identity. We latch onto it like it's going to bring us to somewhere that we want to go, when in fact, it's actually completely the opposite. Those stories are holding you back from the person you actually want to become. And there's an amazing quote by Anais Nin, who is an author, and she wrote that we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. So if we are insecure about our body, that's how we think everyone else sees us. So we're projecting what we feel about ourselves onto the world. So if we feel that we're not worthy around like that, we're projecting that on. So if someone says something to us about our appearance, well, we're going to get triggered by that, because we're putting meaning to those words, because it's easier for us, because we've told that story to ourselves already. But a perfect example is if someone called you a purple monkey dishwasher, you're not going to get triggered. But if someone said something about how you eat, how your weight, or your slimming club, or whatever it may be, and you take offense to that, you have to look at, why are you getting offended by that? They're only words. Words have no meaning unless the person puts the words behind them. So I know I did an episode recently on kind of the 6 main stories that we kind of tell ourselves, and it seemed to kind of hit home for an awful lot of people. The big thing is, like, the idea that the world is just a reflection of our own thoughts, memories, and experiences. Our thoughts is one of the most insightful insights into our happiness, success, and our self-development. So when we talk about getting better, we have to talk about the actual stories that we do talk to about ourselves. So it's one of the biggest things that we talk about, or most people talk about, is I'm just not good enough. So when you find yourself kind of knocking yourself down, because it's easier to knock yourself down rather than get in there. So say if someone's coming from a background of getting bullied as a kid, like I did, it could be a lot easier for me to put myself down before someone else makes the comment. So if you're in a group of friends and you start putting yourself down about your appearance or your clothes or whatever it might be, you might start taking little digs at yourself. it's easier to do that than rather than hearing someone else do it. So we have to look at from the different versions of the same basic story that says, I'm just not good enough to achieve these things I want, and there's no way I can get better. And there's two words that I always say to clients is cool story. It wrecks their heads. It really does. And I think I'm going to get punched in the head very soon. So this is one of the most personal and attractive narratives because it lets you off success. It lets you off the hook. Change is hard work. Self-improvement is you're gonna fail. You're gonna feel pain. You're gonna feel rejection. Believing that your talent fixes you and that gives you the permission. So you need to change the story by saying, I am good enough right now. I am good enough to build the talent that I actually have. The story that you're going to say is you have to reframe your current limitations as one stage on your ongoing kind of evolution wheel. If you think like a hamster wheel, it has to continuously go. You have to make this story a new reality. You have to set new goals to get you to where you want to go. It's going to be difficult. You're going to struggle. You have to put in actions every single day. The one that kind of comes in is I'm too late or I'm too old. I've missed the boat when this opportunity comes in. I'm too old to start training. Whatever it may be, I'm too old to switch jobs. It's a story. It's compelling because it gives you another reason to avoid the situation, to avoid the actual challenge that's there. It equates success with the opportunity, and success is a narrow window in which to achieve your goals. But if you look at some of the most successful people out there, the likes of, say, Ray Kroc was 52 when he met the McDonald's brothers and opened his first franchise. And 59, he bought the business from McDonald's. Oprah Winfrey was 29 when she first hosted a local TV show, and that became the Oprah Winfrey Show later on. So there's some of the ones there that kind of like, it's never too late. It's just how you like, what's the rush? Like I started my own business at like 29 or 30. I'm nowhere near compared to Ray Kroc or whatever it may be, but it's still like this. You can still make things. You need to make the new story and say, rather than treating age as an actual hurdle, reframe it as an asset, saying, right, I've got this experience now. I've worked in X, Y, and Z job. Bring those practical skills over. Because what I've definitely noticed is the people who go into, say, PT or whatever it may be at the age of 18, 19, 20, they haven't got that life experience that allows them to be in tune with what their clients are experiencing. So if you are gone,
use the struggles as your assets. I loved that. But there's one thing that you missed out in your story I actually want you to talk about in this, because success isn't about opportunity. It's about taking what you got and creating your own success. You had something happen to you. You had like an injury or something that actually forced you into the fitness space. So that wasn't just like, you could have seen that as something defeating, not as something that was an opportunity. And you could have easily said it's too late or you're too old. And I think a lot of people can actually relate to the fact that it's not too late. Like, you probably have been yo-yo dieting your whole life. You probably have been doing all of these stupid things that just keep sabotaging you back. And then just staying comfortable in the stories you tell yourself on you always fail, or you're just stuck this way because you already made it through this part of your life. But like you said, it's about taking what you got and creating your own success. And you probably wouldn't be where you are now if that didn't happen to you. And you could have easily seen it the other way and just played victim for that. So that's something that I actually think is really powerful to touch on.
Yeah. So where do I start with this? My X Factor story, as some of the lads call it. So I had a real job for a while. I used to work in sales and marketing for like 6 years, and I absolutely hated the job. And I started a new job in April 2017, on the Monday. And on the Saturday, I was admitted to hospital with blood clots in my left arm. So I had one blood clot here on my trap, and I had one blood clot just above the forearm on my left arm. So it had expanded massively. There was fluid in the arm. There was a rash. And it's probably swollen up to about 5 or 6 times the size of my normal arm. It wasn't sore, which was the weird thing. And then I was kept getting phone calls from work to kind of come back in because I just started the job. So they obviously wanted me to, because the nature that I was in, I was there paying me and I wasn't bringing money in. So it kind of just wasn't working. And then 2 weeks later, I went back in on the first day, and within half an hour at my desk, I collapsed with fluid on my lungs. I passed out and I had to go in and get the fluid and stuff drained off my lungs. So that wasn't a fun experience. So I fell into a very, very dark place. And I did have that pity story. I did have the victim mentality of like, why me? And if looking about it back at it now, if that whole thing hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't be here anymore. I was that miserable beforehand, but it took something like that for me to realize that one of the big things that was holding me back was caring what other people think of like, oh, I need to be in a corporate job. I need to be in this kind of so-called real world of 9 to 5 or whatever, maybe have a steady income coming in. But I always wanted to do something by myself. I just didn't have the balls to do it. But the thing that drove me was like, it made me appreciate what I had. This was a setback. I could have let it define me, but I was kind of like, no, I'm actually going to try and do something. But I never thought it was going to be fitness. I never, ever thought it was fitness because I was at probably my heaviest when I got sick. And then I lost 2 stone in 6 weeks. And I looked very, very gaunt. There's one photo I have of Father's Day, like 6 weeks after coming out of surgery. And I look really, 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 really unwell. Like I don't recognize the person. And even I show the photo to my dad. My dad doesn't recognize the person. My dad's arm is around me in the photo. So it's quite a scary photo. But the big thing that kind of caught me out was 2 sentences were said was, well, why not me? I was like, well, why me? And I was like, well, why not me? If it wasn't going to be me, someone else would have this opportunity. Someone else would be sick. And that caught me out. I was like, well, the thing was, the whole caring what other people think. Literally no one else gives a flying shit what you do on a daily basis. People are so absorbed in their own thing. We care way too much what other people think when they actually are probably thinking about rainbows and butterflies. They're not thinking about what you do. There's more important shit in their lives than you. And that as soon as you realize that, it's a hell of a lot easier. So I went traveling, started doing Joe Wicks stuff, and lost a good bit of weight, got into the kind of cardio, very, very fit, changed my body composition completely. And then on my flight home from Vietnam, I booked my PT course. And then that was 2018. And now we're here with two coaches, and a new staff member just came on board on Tuesday. And the podcast is what, number 1 or number 2 in Ireland for nutrition. And yeah, it's all a little bit nuts. So it's like, you do have a choice in how you react to situations. Normally it's not the situation that makes us get triggered. It's normally how we react to it. That's how stress is. Would I change what happened? Probably not. Am I glad it happened? Yes, it was the scariest thing and probably the best thing that ever happened. It made me realize who I wanted in my life. It made me realize that I was going down a path that I didn't necessarily want to go. But I do think you have a choice in how you react to every single thing. You can either take the high road or else you can take the road that you actually want to go.
I love it when you said it on one of your own as well. I love it when podcasts don't actually go to script, because I actually think this is really powerful for making this pretty much the stories we tell ourselves, because you were doing something that you were miserable doing and you still kept doing it. And then you got another job that you probably would have been miserable doing. You were overweight, very unhealthy by the sounds of it, but you mentioned that you felt like you needed to do that job. And I'm sure that stemmed from something in the past, which probably a lot of other people also have playing in their head. But what were the stories and soundtracks, as I like to call them, that were going on in your head then? And how did that impact the way that you went about life and just wanting to improve your life at all, or even make the change for a better life?
I think one of the main ones was they had to have a 9 to 5 and a steady income. I think like both my parents were in the same companies from like 17, 18. So that's the way they were brought up. And that's nothing against them, but it's definitely changed that dynamic. Like people are leaving careers and starting up own businesses now. That entrepreneurial spirit may not have been there, but I never really took instruction very well from my bosses. I just didn't really like I just didn't like being told what to do. I didn't, because I was in sales and marketing, I didn't like making money for other people. I wanted to, like, if I want to be fed, I need to go out and get sales. That's the way I like it. It holds me accountable to myself. And sometimes I can push myself that bit too much on this end, in that I'm always looking for the next thing. And that was one of the things I spoke about with Dallas, one of the coaches yesterday, was like, with the book that's coming out on the 3rd of December, I'm gonna have to take some time off, because that's a big thing. But I think one of the things that kind of come up was caring what other people think. The other thing that was kind of coming up was, I have to do something for me. Why can't I do something for me? I am worthy of doing this if I want to do it. And the other thing was, it's going to be hard work. People think that changing things are going to be easy, and the world owes me fuck all. Like, literally, you can't, like, a victim mentality was adopted by me, but the world owes me fuck all. Like, we deserve nothing, to be honest with you. No human deserves anything. You have to put the graft into what you want to do. All this kind of manifesting stuff, you can believe that you're going to go down a direction, have an idea of where you want to go. But if you can't just manifest £1 million into your bank account, you have to put the graft in. That's not my goal, but that's an example that I come up with, because most people think they'll be happier when they get to a certain weight. They'll be happier when they get to a certain bank balance. But once again, that's a story.
Yes, all of that. People think that as soon as they hit this idea in their head, everything's just going to fall into place. And you mentioned perfectionism and actually doing something for yourself. Now, we both know that females do not like putting themselves first, and they never actually stop to consider, what do they want? What do they need? And it's like, you realize that you needed to do something for yourself. You said you realized that you didn't like taking orders, but we don't usually realize a lot of this stuff going on, because we're never thinking about our needs. So what would you say to, because you mentioned reframing and creating a new reality as the two ways to get out of this stuck place, how can you transition away from this stuckness to actually putting yourself first, actually realizing what it is you want, so you can put in the process steps, put the action in, to then create that momentum that drives you forward?
I think you have to get uncomfortable. I think you have to look at what you're doing right now and asking yourself, like, are you happy or are you content? It's very rare for someone to be content with where they're at. They always want, like, it's human nature to strive for something else. It's human nature. Like, once you get to a destination, you're like, well, I want the next thing. I want the next shiny object. Because as humans, we are attached to status more than anything else. Like, money isn't what drives people, it's status. And that's why social media works so well, because we're looking at other people and saying, right, they're successful. We put up a photo looking for likes. We're looking for that dopamine hit. And it's important for us to kind of say to ourselves, hang on, do I actually want to do this? Am I putting my right ladder against the wrong wall here? Or am I just doing this because this is what I'm expected to do? It gets a little bit more difficult when you have kids. And I'm not downplaying that. Like, if you want to change career and you've got kids and a mortgage over and a roof over your head and a wife or a partner, or whatever it may be, you have to bring in other people into it. And that's where that kind of, like, it gets a little bit more difficult. When it comes to how the whole people pleasing side of things, is this sentence is going to hurt people. You just value other people over yourself. That's all that it is. You just value other people over yourself. You're trying to be liked by everyone, but because you potentially don't like yourself. That's essentially what it is. You're looking for this kind of like dopamine and serotonin hit of reward or acknowledgement for what you've done. And you're looking for that from other people that really couldn't give a shit about you, most or more often than not. For parents and stuff, and moms in particular, I found that they are amazing humans, and they put their kids ahead of themselves more often than not. And that's a massive credit to themselves. So I'm not putting that as a negative. But when it's coming to neglecting your own health, neglecting your own emotions, you're probably being selfish, because you're not offering them the best version of you. And that is hard for them to listen to. You have to look and say, well, I know one of my clients has, like, say 4 kids, and her husband is a farmer. So he's out in the land from, say, 5:30 in the morning up until, say, 9 or 10 o'clock at night. She has 4 kids. She has a job herself. And she struggles to book in time for herself. So what I always try to say to her is, like, book in 3 meetings with you a week. And that's what I want you to do. It could be half an hour. It could be ringing a friend. It doesn't matter what it is. But, and I know I hate this bloody thing of you have time. Everyone has 24 hours in the day. Yes, we do. But when you become a parent, it becomes a little bit different, because your 24 hours aren't your own. Your kid could get sick, work. Like, if you've got half an hour for lunch or an hour for lunch, that could be involving getting one of your kids from school to bring it back home. And then they're running around drawing stuff on the wall with crayons. Like, that ultimately could be your life. But at the same time, if you are a little bit more prepped on a Sunday, or plan your week out for yourself and say, right, look at my week. Right, there's my meetings for work. They're booked into my calendar. Right, let's get the meetings for myself booked in there so I can know and can say no. Like, people are working from home at the minute. It's actually easier to do it while working from home. If you book off, say, 8 a.m. until 7:30 in the morning to let you go for a walk or grab a cup of coffee, habit stack. You want a cup of coffee? Go walk. If you live down the country, potentially when the kids are dropped off to school, potentially go for a walk, meet up with a friend, do an online class. You could do that quite easily. You could potentially do an online class when you're potentially meant to be working as well, if you wanted. But it's important to say, right, if I plan my week on a Sunday, book in those meetings for yourself. It's a hell of a lot easier. But the people pleasing mentality is you just value other people
Yeah. And
over your own. And when that lands with people and they're in the place to listen to that, because that's the hardest part. That's the hardest part. People sometimes don't want to, are in denial. They don't want to hear that story. It will land with someone, but it won't land with everyone, because some people will be like, oh, that's not me. And then they'll be like, oh, that is me. And people pleasing can come from bullying. It can come from trauma in their lives. They can come from loads of very, very different areas. But the main underlying thing is, it could be a self-esteem thing. It could be a self-confidence thing. It could be how you perceive yourself. But you need to ask yourself, well, why is that other person more important than myself? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Why is that other person?
Dallas posed a question, and I love it. It's, are you living life for you, or are you living life for others? And that quote is just like the epitome of, like, mothers in general. Like, they may even be trying to put on a show to show themselves as, oh, I'm such a competent mother, especially with social media being up and all that other stuff as well. But because you brought up so many great things about mothers making time for themselves, it's still such a struggle for them to realize that booking time out for themselves actually means their kids get a lot more time from them, because you're not as scattered. You're not running around trying to do everything. You're not feeling so shit within yourself. You could probably even lash out at the kids because you're so stressed out from not actually giving yourself time. And then your health deteriorates. Then you start hating yourself more and playing into more of your negative identity, because your body's doing this, your mood's doing this, you're not eating the right foods now. So now that's impacting your mind. And it's just not giving the best version of you to the others. So, like, how can we break through that hesitation of, like, actually putting ourselves first for just that chunk of time? And how do you suggest to actually take that first step?
So it's going to be a 2-letter word. No. It's like, it takes more effort to say yes than it does to say no. That's the truth. It takes more hot air to come out of your mouth in order to say yes than it does to say no. So it's about saying no more often than not. You need to have your boundaries into place. You need to pause and ask yourself, is this task going to bring me to my destination? Is this task going to lead me to where I want to go? Or is this helping someone else? You have to be that little bit more selfish, because ultimately you're being selfish as it is. Like, you're being selfish as it is because you're not giving the world your best. You have an opportunity to say no. So say if someone comes in and your sister or someone rings in saying, will you bring the kids to football or whatever it may be, and you're about to go for your session in the next half an hour, What's the difference? I'm guaranteed they've said no to you on certain things. So why is it that you can't say no? Well, if they take offense, that's their issue. That's their issue. They can gossip about you all they want, but that's their issue. They have you've set the precedence, first of all, by allowing them for years probably to walk all over you. You've probably set the precedence of doing everything they've said. If they say jump, you say how high. But ultimately, you have to say to yourself right now, is that action or whatever task it is that going to bring to you where you want to go, or is that going to be on someone else's time? You only have a certain amount of time on this earth. You can use it for yourself, or else you use it for other people. Spend the time wisely. Don't use it for everyone else, because ultimately you are a mother, but that isn't necessarily your identity. Your identity is you. You don't have to, you can be the mother, but you don't have to be the mother to every single person. And I think it's very hard to disassociate that for a lot of parents, in that they are the mother, but they don't necessarily have to be the carer for every single person. But then someone's going to come back, well, I'm the carer in the family. I'm the person that looks after everyone in the family. But no one else created that role bar you. You've set that rule. No one else asked you to do that. And I was like, well, someone else is not going to step up. But why did you have to step up? I'm all for people looking after family. That's amazing. And it's something that it's one of my big things is family and friends. But the big thing is, I will always say, like, there's times where you do things that you don't want to do. You have to eat shit sometimes. But more often than not, you can say no. And no is difficult for people to say because we think what other people are going to come back with negative words, but we're creating those stories. We can't read their minds. We cannot read people's minds. So you have to look and say, well, is this going to serve me? More often than not, start with the first no, and then you'll notice a kind of an avalanche effect after that of saying no, no, no. Set the bar for yourself. Life is so much easier when you start to say no to more things.
Yeah. And it's not your identity, it's a big thing, but you mentioned that you set the precedence before in your past. So that in itself has created this momentum, this habit, and it can either work for you or against you. Just like you mentioned with the no, how you say it once and then it just cascades down. It's kind of like the paper chain effect, where as soon as you start linking the paper clips, it gets longer and longer, and then you're gravitated towards linking more chains because you're getting that dopamine hit. You're showing yourself you can do it. But then there's the fact that, okay, you set this precedence before, but you need to break that inertia first. And it gets hard when, like, there are people that they've never done the fitness thing before. All they can see is this end result, and then somewhere along the way, life takes over, something happens, and then they struggle to get the motivation to actually jump back on track. Like, it could be the stories we tell ourselves or whatever it is. It's just hard to then get that motivation to just show up and exercise. And then on the other hand, people that are already training hard, they already know they need to eat right, but might be sabotaging with emotional eating. But then they have never actually sat in with their mental health. They've never journaled before. They have hesitation to journaling. They have hesitation to doing the inner work. So there's like this, you can ramble on for ages now, because I just gave you 3 different aspects of where that hesitation shows how there's the action, the motivation, there's this emotional eating thing happening, even though you're smashing yourself in the gym, but then there's no actual push to journal and do the inner work. So how do you fix this complexity of complexities?
And the first thing is, I think the word isn't really fixed, because fixed decides broken. So we're not broken. So it's kind of looking at it from a point of view of, with the emotional eating thing, and we use one of the tools that we use with our clients. It's like, most of our clients don't actually track calories. Like, I know it's an amazing tool, but a hammer is an amazing tool to hammer a nail, but it's not an amazing tool to change a light bulb. Like, it's one of those things that's, it's very useful in the right hands, but a lot of our clients would struggle from yo-yo dieting for years and have emotional eating. And it's important to understand that binge eating is, you lose control and you can't stop. binge eating or emotional eating is you can stop if you want, but you decide not to. So it's two very, very different things. And emotional eating and stuff like that, it comes from having this overwhelm of emotion that you have in your body and you struggle to deal with it. You have this negative voice in your head that kind of comes in. One of the things that we work an awful lot with our clients is actually naming that voice. So we'll call it Sharon, for example. And when that voice comes in, rather than fueling it with negativity and telling it to fuck off, because that's like that voice fuels off negativity. It's like pouring gasoline onto a fire. It's just gonna expand. So thank you. Name that voice and say thank you, Sharon, for that comment, because that voice is an inner dialogue. It's a thought, a thought is a belief. A belief is a set of values that you've created for yourself. We have two things in our body. We have the brain and we have our subconscious. Our subconscious is where we feel, our brain is where we think. But if our subconscious is telling us often enough that we're not worthy or whatever it may be, our brain will eventually latch onto it. So if we can say, right, this subconscious thought is coming into us and it's coming into our brain, and it goes from one ear to the left ear to the right ear, or whatever it may be, it's up to us if we latch onto it. How often do these positive things come in and they just kind of sweep through the brain? But if a negative lens comes in, it gets latched onto. It's like a fish. It gets latched onto, like a fly flying past you. You grab onto it because it's easier. Negative thoughts are hell of a lot easier. Your brain is there as a computer to register negative thoughts. It's there to protect you. But you have to learn how to say, hang on, is this thought true? Or is it an opinion? Is this an opinion that I've created? And more often than not, that people will realize that when they haven't slept, are a little bit more emotional at a certain time in the month, when they're a little bit more stressed, these negative thoughts kind of get a little bit more common. They get a little bit more present and they don't know how to deal with them. That's natural. And generally what happens then is when we get a little bit more stressed, we get a little bit more tired, our brain kind of goes into protective mode and saying, right, I need this little bit more fuel. And my primary source of fuel that I want is carbohydrates, and it's going to be sugar, and it's going to be more processed food. It's going to be fats. But that's your brain's way of getting it. It's looking for the quickest source of energy into your brain or into your body. And they're the ones that are going to give it to you, but they're not going to serve you. If an emotion, if hunger isn't the issue, food isn't the answer. So you have to actually sit down when that thought comes in. Thank yourself. Thank Sharon for that thought. Then, write it down and say, right, is this an actual fact or is this an opinion? Have I created this out of my arse or is this an actual fact? And more often than not, most things that we say about ourselves aren't actual facts. They're self-professing stories that we've created.
Stories that we tell ourselves.
And they're serving us. Well, they're not actually serving you. That's the funny thing. So then you realize where the trigger is. So say if someone is, they said the common case would be in the evenings, I lose control, or once I pop, I just can't stop. The Pringles ad in the evenings. That's generally what happens. So we look at their kind of habits throughout the rest of the day. Are you having regular meals throughout the day? No. Are you going through massive? Are you having breakfast? No. Are you having lunch? No. So you're eating you're eating fuck all during the rest of the day, and then you're having all your food in the evenings. Okay, well, first of all, we need to get you to eat more regular meals, and you'll notice that your blood sugars will stay a lot more steady. Then we need to kind of look at it from a point of view of, in the evenings, what emotion is present? Well, I feel lonely. Okay, so how is food solving the loneliness long term? Because what people say, if you ask them short term, they'll be like, oh, it's giving me a dopamine or a serotonin hit. It makes me feel better a little bit. That's normal. Food is there it gives you a happy hormone. It gives you happy release. That's normal. But it doesn't solve the underlying problem, is that you're feeling lonely. So what can you do to make yourself less lonely? Well, you can ring a friend, meet someone for a walk, ring a family member, or else you can sit. This is where the discomfort comes from. You can sit. You can write out what's going on in your head. You need to bridge the gap of sitting and pausing. So if someone will go for food, some people, this will be an automatic thing for most people, is like, oh, negative emotion comes in, I'm going to the kitchen, before I know it, my hand's in the press. But if you bring in this subtle thing of pause, if you're on the couch, pause and say, hang on, am I actually hungry? Am I 7 or 8 out of 10 hungry, or is there something happening here? Take a big deep breath in and wait for 20 to 30 minutes. Think of it like a wave. It rises, the hunger, the emotion will rise up, and then it'll crash back down. It will pass. And you need to say to yourself, right, do I need this food now, or am I using this to lean on because there's an emotion present? Sitting there with the emotion is uncomfortable, but you have to ask yourself, what's more uncomfortable, continuing down the path you're going down, or is it more uncomfortable getting in tune with what you're doing? Food won't solve your loneliness. Food won't solve your sadness. It may give you a temporary release of dopamine, but you are attached to the pain. You are attached to that pain. You're attached to that story. It's your ego protecting you from that story. And until you drop that story that you're so-called unworthy, or that you're lonely, or I need to have X amount of people in my life, I can't be single at this certain age, that's the story. You're attached to that pain. And until that pain or that story is dropped, it's going to be difficult as fuck for you to move forward. And that's the biggest thing.
What would you say to then those people that don't see the value in putting their thoughts onto paper, into sitting with that story? Because what's the point of just regurgitating negative emotions? I don't see how it's going to help me.
Because you're attached to the story. You're attached to the pain. So until you're attached to that pain, you think that you are that pain. You're attached to that story that I'm not worthy. So you're thinking to yourself, well, because I'm attached to this, it's going to be easier to kind of keep attached to it and continue to go down the road that you want. But you ask yourself, is that method that you're doing right now serving you the direction you want to go? And the answer is no. So what's more valuable to you right now? Continue doing the same thing over and over again, and getting different results, or which is the definition of insanity, or is it taking a little bit more time to yourself and reflect? Journaling isn't for everyone. Meditation isn't for everyone. Yoga isn't for everyone. But what is for everyone is getting that little bit more uncomfortable. Nobody wants to do it. It's not a fun time. It's like you'll notice that these thoughts will come in, but thoughts are just lies. Feelings are where the truth is. So the thoughts that are coming to your head are lies. The feelings that you're feeling right now are actually where the gold is, and that's the truth. But more often than not, people don't want to start believing that. They start believing the thoughts because it's easier. They push down their emotions so far. And what's happened during these weird times over the last 18 months is that people have pushed down emotions for so long, because we lived in such a busy world that they've pushed them down for so long. And now things have erupted and people don't know how to kind of stop the volcano erupting. But you have to ask yourself, do you want to continue doing that, or do you actually want to talk about stuff? Things aren't going to solve themselves over and overnight. The stories may never go away, but you can disassociate yourself from the story. You can dissolve the story, and you don't have to latch onto the story. You will notice that you latch onto the story more when you're tired, you haven't eaten, or you've been out in the piss, or you're at a certain time of your month. But they're stories. They're not actual facts about you. Because one of the common ones is, I feel fat. Well, fat's not a feeling. It's how you perceive yourself. It's your self-worth that you're projecting, because fat's not a feeling. And most people will say, when they're doing the Moon and Food journal that we give them, which is like, you write out what time you've had your meal at, what your meal was, pause before the meal and say, write down how you're feeling. And if a negative emotion comes up, and say, right, hang on, I'm going to wait 20 minutes and have it. And if I don't wait 20 minutes and write it down, well, then the exercise is perfect, is not the method, or you're not using the method fully, and then you say how you feel afterwards. But most people at the very beginning were like, oh, I feel fine. It's like, fine's not a feeling. It's like, grand is not a feeling. Okay is not a feeling. You have to dig that little bit more in. There's an amazing thing called an emotion wheel, and the feeling wheel, should I say.
Yeah.
And it bridges the gap between how you're feeling and and the stories you're telling yourself. So it has all these different kind of like feelings on it, and it allows you to say, right, well, this is actually how I'm feeling, and pinpoint where you're at on it. And if you're feeling any of those, is food going to solve the problem? But then people will come back in and say, well, if it's in a negative emotion, can I never have these foods? I'm like, no. But if it's continuously happening over and over again, and you are that negative emotion is continuously coming up, and you're doing the same behavior over and over again to react to it, then is it really serving you? we all emotionally eat. Christmas Day, Easter, birthdays, stags, hens, they're all emotional days. They're all emotional evenings and stuff like that. They're all emotional times. But when the behavior is going down a negative route and it's not serving you, that's when it's kind of like, that's where it has to be looked at. Because if you're not bringing in some element of pausing or reflecting, one, you don't want to change, which is fine, but then don't give out.
Yeah. So is it controlling you, or are you in control of it? Like all those other occasions, you're pretty much in the driver's seat, but the others not so much, because it's taking you away from where you want to go. So if anything, it's reversing you. It's the driver. And back to the whole, you need to create that chain, you need to create that precedence for yourself. Then how would you then go about the fact that I'm not motivated to show up today? I'm not motivated to do this. I'm not motivated to go do my session today because all this other stuff is going on, or whether there is no other stuff going on. It's just that you don't want to wake up and train.
I think my clients are going to listen to this and they'll be like, I've heard this so many times. It's, you don't know your why. So if you think about it, why do you go to work? The end goal is to get a paycheck. You don't got to work motivated every single day, but you show up. Why is it different to yourself when you're kind of trying to lose weight, or you so-called want to lose weight? Most people don't want to lose weight. They think that the weight loss will bring them happier and they'll get more attention. They'll get more partners. They'll get more, because we're attached to this whole status thing of like, I need to be thin. And I know Dallas put up an amazing post a little while ago, the other day about it. But we have to look at it from like, the thing is like, action actually leads to motivation. So most people think that how we approach motivation is motivation, action, more motivation. But how motivation actually works is action, motivation, more motivation. We have to stop saying, I need to get motivated to take action. And we have to start saying, I need to take action to get motivated. It's easier to act yourself into a better way of feeling and go for that walk and you'll feel a hell of a lot better, rather than saying, well, I actually don't really feel like going to the gym. I'm just going to go there and move a bloody weight around. But you have to start small. So rather than trying to run a marathon on your first day, start off with the first 1K, then move up to 2K, then move up to the 5K, whatever it may be. Motivation is a buzzword that most people will latch onto as an out. We have to look at it from the 5 whys. So I always talk about the 5 whys, and it's from the book by Simon Sinek. And when you're trying to lose weight, you need to ask yourself the 5 whys. So what will typically happen on a phone call with us, when we are working with people, is, well, why do you want to lose weight? Because I want to feel more content. Well, why do you want to feel more content? So I have more energy. Well, why do you want to have more energy? Because I want to play with my kids. Well, why do you want to play with your kids? Because I want them to have memories of me. Why do you want them to have memories of you? Because I want them to be able to tell stories about me to their grandkids. There's a typical example of the 5 whys. And most people will struggle to get past the second one or the third one. And they'll be like, they won't dig enough in order to get to it. Most people think that weight loss is going to solve their problem. But if the body outside is looking like a temple and the head is in ruins up top, it's not going to end well. I've been the most miserable probably when I was at my thinnest or my leanest, because I did it arseways and I got sick. And that's how I got to I went down to 62 kilos when I was at my thinnest. I was miserable. I've also been the other extreme. I've been up to like 87 kilos and I wasn't very comfortable in my own skin. I just didn't feel comfortable in my own clothes. But I've had to go through those 2 extremes to get to where I want to go and be able to say, well, this is one extreme, this is the other extreme. Let's try and find the balance in between. But I know myself that my training is more important for me, for my mental health, than anything. I'm not one of these people that kind of trains for aesthetics. The aesthetics is an absolute bonus. But my most important thing is, if I don't get out for a walk or do some sort of movement each day, that's not a win for me. That's my non-negotiable. And like, if people start, like, I have a work phone, I have a real life phone. One will have my phone on airplane mode so people can't contact me. I have my headphones in. Sometimes they're not even on. Sometimes you'll see the wire dangling underneath and it's not even plugged in. It's my boundary. If I don't get that, I'm being selfish because I'm not giving the world my best. My mental health isn't being looked after. I'm being more tired, being more fatigued. But people need to look at their why. We need to stop procrastinating. We need to, like, why you get out of bed, because you need to go to work. You don't go to work every single day. We need to look at it from there's a thing called I think it's like an action ramp, I think it's called. So you look at, want to get motivated. Perfect example is you want to get motivated to work out. Stop thinking about your workout because it's making you feel overwhelmed. It's preventing you from working out in the past, and choose an actual ramp, or like an action ramp, like putting your gym clothes on, putting your shoes on, getting your water bottle. That minuscule action of putting your gym gear on will often trigger your mind to make you go to the gym. So most people will say when they come back from work of, oh, if I sit down, I'm not going to get back up again. But rather than coming in the door, why not go straight up to your room? Your gym clothes are out onto the bed already, and you're putting them on. Put the gym gear on, and I guarantee you'll be ready to go for some sort of walk. And that helps a hell of a lot more. Have your kit bag in the car. Have your kit bag at the front door. That really, really helps.
I always say this, so I'm going to say it again. You can't change the mind with the mind. It's impossible. You need to physically move your way out of your mental state. And like you said, with the non-negotiables, make movement one of your non-negotiables. Any movement. It's mental health. It's one of the best things for you. And like, as soon as you start moving, you automatically feel more energized. You feel better for getting that movement in, because that was for yourself, especially when it's in the morning. And you mentioned, like I always say, you think the why is weight loss, but it's not. And everyone knows my story. I've been a bodybuilder, a powerlifter, all the in-betweens. And it wasn't until I made the process the goal and just enjoyed being in the moment, not chasing things, which women do all the time, always chasing this, chasing that. When you're just in the moment, focusing on being your best in that moment, it doesn't matter whether you're like, of course I train for aesthetics. I'm training to have pretty damn good legs and a pretty damn good glutes, but it's not my purpose to training. I train because I feel incomplete without it. And I have my rest days when I need them, but my training forms part of my lifestyle now. I've made it part of my life, but only because the process has been the goal. And once I stopped chasing things and started being in the moment, realizing the goal isn't this, like the goal isn't weight loss, for example. The goal is, you're really good at this because Dallas goes on about it all the time, but the goal isn't that whatever you thought it was. It's what it makes you feel. It's all the things under the why, which even if you don't have those bottom layers of your whys, it's, what it brings you. Like, you feel good, you feel more energized. So as soon as you start feeling those things on a daily basis, something women don't do enough is actually tuning into how they feel. Oh, I got this done today. Oh, I nailed my food today. Oh, I was good today. Oh, I was bad today. Yeah, but okay, you did that. You was this, you was that. You were this, you were that. Whatever words you want to use. But how did it make you feel? And as soon as you start actually sitting with those feelings, because like you said, the no just goes down, but the yes just goes across. It's almost the same with your wins, how you feel, the good feelings. They just shoot across the top of your head. But when you feel shit, you linger on it. But you need to sit with the good feelings. You need to remember them. That's even something that you can journal or write down. Like, journaling doesn't mean writing a bloody essay, writing a bloody novel. I'm not a journaler, but I write. Like, you don't identify with journaling, and just take that first step, that action, that motivation, and that paperclip chain. Maybe that's one thing you can actually end on to summarize everything we've said about the paperclip chain. Like, either good or bad, you can create a negative chain or you can create a positive chain. But something I was thinking about as I was training, which is when I usually listen to podcasts, is, so you're creating this chain. One day you clip on a paperclip. Another day you clip on a paperclip. One day you just don't show up, but you don't take away anything from that chain. it is still intact. So why do you act like your world's about to crumble just because you didn't add on a clip that day? Whereas people will not add on a clip, and then it's like all hope is lost. They can't get that motivation back because they failed. So this is something really strong to end on, to summarize literally everything about the clip, the chain when it comes to breaking your own stories you tell yourself, the chain when it comes to motivation, the chain when it comes to just committing to the basics over and over again, and the chain that just comes with getting uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I think the big thing is to understand what the chain is, the paperclip chain. So there's a guy over in the States, and he kind of went into an insurance broker or a finance broker or whatever it may be, and he was on the sales team. And they were given a target of a certain amount of calls or a certain amount of revenue for the month or whatever it may be. And what he did is he put a lot of paper clips into one cup, and he had an empty cup beside it. So every time that he rang a call, he would move one paper clip into the second mug in order to say, right, my goal at the end of the day is to have all these paper clips on the left into the paper clip into the cup on the right hand side. And that would be like, well, I've hit all my targets. And he would find that it increases productivity because he was saying, I need to get these from X to Y to Z. He became the biggest salesperson after about 6 months. And then after that became the CEO, and he got headhunted into one of the biggest organizations in the world. And that's exactly what happened. But it was small output over time that got him to his destination. I compare it to like when you're saving for a mortgage, you don't necessarily, you're not going to get your house, unless you're very fortunate, you're not going to get your house on the first paycheck, but it's small increments being saved every single month that's going to get you the house over time. So you know what your why is straight away. But more often than not, when it comes to people losing weight or getting fitness, it's a game of I have failed or I have succeeded. If you are attaching when the scales goes up to failure, you have to ask yourself, why is that a failure? Well, because it's gone up. Yeah, but if you didn't take a shit for 2 days, the scales will go up. If you drank 2 liters of water, the scales will go up. If you went fasted onto the scales in the morning and drank 2 liters of water after that, the scales will go up. You have fuck all control over that weighing scales, and that's the biggest thing. But we continue to project our identity of failure. We continue to project our identity of what other people want us to be, when the actual head may not be playing ball. The scales has no actual mechanism in the wrong hands. The scales is a tool. It measures the relation between you and gravity at any one point. It doesn't measure your self-worth. And someone else, I put this up on one of my posts today, and someone came back and tells a story. I'm like, well, only if that story is that you're amazing. It doesn't tell a story that you are a failure. Like, it doesn't tell a story if it's not in the right hands. And if you're getting triggered every time the scales goes up and you're potentially overeating after that, a gun can't go off without a trigger. Remove the trigger. So remove the weighing scales. But how will I know I'm succeeding? Well, do you feel good? Are your clothes feeling better? Are you having sex with the lights on? There's 3 things that you can use instead of scales. We talk about non-scales victories with our clients a hell of a lot. And we talk about, well, are you fitting back into your clothes? Are you having more energy? The kids are noticing you're having chocolate every single day. You're having carbs every single day. Are they not more important for you than what a scale says? But I'm only down 2 kg. Yeah, but you're probably down 2 kg now, and you're not giving up 90% of your life and having chocolate every day. Well, which do you want? Do you want to have chocolate every day? Do you want to have carbs every day? Or do you want to step on the scales and let it ruin your life? Your decision is, you can either let the scales ruin your life, or you can take ownership of your life. The scales has no emotion, has no moral standing unless you're putting the moral standing into it. The scales, like, you don't go into a shop looking for a size 70 kilos. You go into a shop looking for a certain size or how clothes feel. So why is the scales the bigger standing for you? You don't look at me right now and say Shane's X amount of weight or Ruby's X amount of weight, but you're putting the same labels to yourself. Now they're disempowering you. They're triggering you. So you need to say, right, when am I going to be happy? You can't tell that. You're not going to be happy at a certain weight, because what will happen is you get to 70 kilos and then you'd be like, oh, I want more. It's human nature. It's more status. It's more power. You're looking for more validation from others, especially if you look at your friends that you're surrounding yourself with. If you're in those slimming clubs and they're like tut tut when you're up and high five when you're down, you need to get out of those slimming clubs. That's your trigger. You cannot let the scales be the driver of your success. It won't help you. It's like, are you letting your bank balance be the driver of your success? It's the exact same thing. but you don't put as much morals into the bank balance as you would into your weight because you perceive it to be a failure. It's not a failure. You're attaching your self-worth to that. You are worth more than what that scales is telling you. You are worth more that negative voice is telling you. So thanks, Sharon, for that cool story that you've created, and have a look at saying, what's the underlying thing? Are you unhappy because marriage may not be working? Are you unhappy because you don't feel comfortable in your clothes? Are you unhappy because you're lonely and you're putting your self-worth onto that scales and projecting it? Because the only thing that you can that scales can truly measure is the relationship between you and gravity. It can't measure the relationship between you and you.
I love that you ended on the scales, because I tell all my clients to throw out their scales. I don't want them to step on the scales unless they've already developed all of that to start up with. Like I have about 3 clients that actually do weigh themselves because they've been with me for like 2-3 years, and they've developed that positive relationship with the scale. So now they stand on it. It's like, you need to look at all these non-scale victories. You need to actually look at the photos. You need to look at, well, if you do take photos, because you don't want to place your worth and your identity on any one thing. As soon as you realize that it is in control of you and it's giving you the negative emotions, stopping you from moving forward, you need to remove that until you're ready to bring it back in again. So yeah, I loved how you said that you don't look at other people, oh, that person's 80 kilos, I don't want to be friends with them. Like, you don't do that stuff.
Yeah.
So
the scales, it will go up and down, and it's how you react to it. You have 2 methods of it. Stay on it every single day and understand how your body works. If you're a girl, there's going to be like weeks with like weeks. Compare week 1 of your cycle post bleed to week 1 of your cycle post bleed the following month, to week 2, week 2, week 3, week 3, week 4, week 4. It's going to go up and down. And when you realize that, life is a hell of a lot easier, or else you've got the other alternative of stay the hell off the scales. If the scales is the trigger, remove the trigger, and then you'll understand that the scales actually wasn't the trigger. It's a negative emotion. How you perceive yourself is it's what's probably the trigger. So control what you can, control the controllables, and your life will be a hell of a lot easier for yourself.
Yeah. And how you perceive your life. You don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. I didn't know that was from a book. I used to say it all the time, and now I know. So yeah, I will let you finish up with whatever you want to finish up on. I will link I'll actually put your podcast down below as well. I'll put your Instagram down below. Is there anything else that you want to have included in this?
I think the big thing for myself is, I know on the 3rd of December, my first book is coming out. So the no nonsense approach to female fat loss will be out on the 3rd of December on Amazon. It's available for pre-order at the minute through the link in my bio, or else if you go over to ShaneWalshFitness.com. And I'm currently writing that. So it's going to be talking about like the various different stages of a woman, going from giving you tips on how to manage your cycle. Is the pill the answer? Menopause, perimenopause, postnatal, prenatal, endometriosis, PCOS, loads of different things, every single stage of it. So about 80% written at the minute. Poor Dallas has to proof it. So that's going to be coming out, and that's the big thing that's kind of driving me at the minute. Like, I don't wake up every single morning wanting to write that book, but I know what the why is at the end of it, which is having that book in my hand, and knowing that it's the best I could do, and knowing that it is hopefully going to serve someone that if they get it.
I do have to say, there's no doubt, because with all the shit out there saying that this is the way that a cycle should be handled, it's false. There's no one way a cycle should be handled. You started the conversation with this. Every single person is different. There is not one single person that should do what someone else says because it is the way. Everyone responds differently. And I'm sure you even mentioned it in the book as well, that you need to look out for certain different signs. You need to be able to read your body to then respond to your body signs, because there's no such thing as cycling this or cycling that if your body doesn't need it. Like, everybody's body needs different things. So with that.
Big time. Yeah, go by how you feel. No one else can tell you otherwise. If you don't understand your own body, how can you expect your partner to understand what moods and stuff like that you're in? Because it'll probably make you have a better relationship if that communication is there, knowing when you may be retreating at certain times of the month, and knowing how you operate could give you the freedom of how you actually want to feel and how the direction you want to go. Because hammering yourself every single week when you may notice 10 days that month is not going to help you in any way. It hasn't served you. Tracking something like your cycle could give you the freedom to where you want to go. It could be the key to the destination you actually want to take.
Yeah. And then you'll stop falling for stupid gimmicks online that tell you that this is how you should train because this is how everyone with a cycle should train. Because no, everyone's different. So that sums up the podcast. We're all different in the way that we respond to things. We need to recognize our stories, be willing to sit in the discomfort, and just take that first small step. You can use paper clips, whatever it is, just take that first damn small step, the first actionable step, not one that's miles ahead that you can't reach. And you will get to your destination that way. So thank you so much for coming on. I'll put all that below. This will be out on Monday as per usual, and I will see you all in the next podcast.